dismissed earlier than 4 o'clock remain in the same category and the same application, same thing that has existed all along. This legislation does not change that at all. As Eric explained, from the state law, any children that are being dismissed or picked up the same time that other children, public school children, are being picked up, it's against the law to treat any children differently. So those kids are not in any way covered, or I should say, they're not in any way changed by this law. The children that are dismissed 4 o'clock or later have now the variety of things that Eric mentioned, the reimbursement and the ability to pick them up within 600 feet from their homes, not further away. They are permitted to pick them up within 600 feet from their homes.
2 options. One, if you go in the reimbursement option, or if you're electing to have OBGYN busing, big choice. The second thing that we look at, which comes from you, is what are your session times? Are your session times going from 4 p.m., including 4 p.m., and later, or not? And a lot of schools will have different session times for different grades. So therefore, depending on what grades have what session times, we will give you a different answer. And what I was trying to bring out in the question that we were asked is, what if we want reimbursement for grades that have session times that let out 4 p.m. or later, but there's still one grade, a younger grade perhaps, that has a session time that ends before 4 o'clock. Those would be treated differently because the session times are different. The key determining factor here is post 4 p.m. session time or later. That's super duper important.
If you choose to take the reimbursement, we hire a company, ABC busing, doing busing after 4 o'clock. We have dismissal for kindergarten at 3 o'clock, so they would not be eligible to go with ABC busing, they would go with OPT consolidated. At 9 a.m., from first grade up, would be picked up by ABC because that's part of the $30. What's with the kindergarten? Who's picking them up? Consolidated? So is there a possibility if I have a kindergarten kid and I have a third grade, I'm going to have 2 bus stops? One is consolidated 1,400 feet away, and one is the third grade that's 600 feet away?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Please. It's wonderful, I would say it's wonderful to see some of you upset about the 1,400 and the 600. But I would just suggest that you can be upset if you want, but it's funny to me how we didn't have any reimbursement before, and now that there is reimbursement of, what is it, $28? 2340, I'm sorry. And that's usually how we are, that's human nature. Now that there's reimbursement 2340, there's, I would say some people, feel, and I'm not directing this to you, because I heard the hush, and that's the fact. The fact is that if you want to get anything accomplished, I know there's something called perfection, but life in general is not work that way. So if you don't want the 2340 and you'd like to have the way things were with the bus stops and the way you want it, no one is obligated to take part in this program at all. You can do whatever you were doing before and not be confused. If, however, you want to take advantage of it, here are pieces that are just difficult, and that's something that we can't resolve yet. We're hoping at some time in the future, when and if public school children will fall into the same category by law, then things will be able to change for everyone.
Yes, sir.
Once the money is gone, then we will, and there's another couple forms in here that ask for your email address or your contact information. That is very important because Once we get to a cap, or we're getting to the cap, we will send out a mass email to everyone saying, you know, as of today or as of this week, we see that we have reached our cap. There's not going to be enough funding available. We might reduce the rate. It might go from $13 to $8. Or we might say, we have reached the cap, we are done. As of December, there's no more reimbursement. So that's why adding additional days may cause a problem. So we want to make sure we keep it Monday through Friday. And until we figure out how many schools join the program, we will know better how much money is available.
And if I can have your attention, please. That's why this year is that's why this year is very important, as I stress. It's a trial year. Nobody knows how big or how much this is actually going to cost. So this is a year, through the detail, through the experience of actually doing this for the first time, we're going to figure that out and calibrate it. So it's very, very important to keep that in mind. Yes, sir, in the back. I can't hear you.
What happens if a child moves, a child who's not eligible, in the middle of the year he moves?
Right, that's a very common occurrence, and that child would then be what we would call only an OPT, re-eligibilized. So that can happen. So right, so the question is a child who's not eligible, but the child moves and the child becomes eligible, so then the child's eligible. That's what happens. Had OPT busing, but now elects to get reimbursement, they're also excluded from the cap, because that's busing that the city was providing anyway. So what the cap applies to is the schools that the city didn't bus before, but now electing to get reimbursement. So there are those carve-outs, which frankly makes the money last longer.
The only reason that I might understand these issues is because Shia in Albany with his father and Eric here in New York spent hours and hours trying to get it through my skull. So the importance of what Eric just mentioned is that he mentioned earlier that as the year progresses, some of you might be concerned that the cap, the money that was set aside for reimbursement, would be exhausted, and then the city would have to say to you that from now on the reimbursement rate is less. So what Shia and Eric just brought to your attention is there were two different categories, right? We had the morning, those that are kindergarten, and then those were 1 through 6. The kids that were in kindergarten we're not talking about anymore, because remember, they're not eligible for the reimbursement. They're only eligible for the city's transportation. The question is, some of the schools have had the city transportation in the past for 1 through 6, grades 1 through 6, and now would like to choose the method of reimbursement. And there are many schools like that, particularly in Midwood and out of Brooklyn and Queens, and there are still some here. Those that are switching from the city transportation to the reimbursement, those are not included in the cap. They are automatically going to be reimbursed whatever money it takes.
At the rate of $13?
At the rate of $23.40. So again, the cap, first of all, I just discussed with Assembly Member Weinstein, we'd like to be conservative, but we don't believe that the cap is going to run out in December. It's going to be much longer than that. I can't promise. But be clear that those that have public and are switching to reimbursement, that expense does not go into the deduction on the cap.
Okay, let's take one more question and then we can stay afterwards. So, ma'am. Well, you have your 5 alternate days, and you can use your 5 alternate days as you wish. The question is about the 5 alternate days, and you can use them as previously as you wish.
As Eric said, this is an experimental year, and we hope to continue doing that. Aline, you want to say something before we leave?
Besides wanting to thank DOE for being here and explaining the situation, I did want to say, because I heard some people saying talking about the 1,400 feet, 600 feet in the morning, the difference between the stops, that in the back of our mind is also once other parents who are only using, where the children are attending a public school, a charter school, or a school that dismisses before 4 p.m., when they see the advantage, the safety advantage of the 600 feet, I'm hopeful that there'll be more of a cry for all children in our city, whether they attend a religious school, a public school, to have the bus stops closer together for the safety of the children, and that this in the future may become a reality that all children in our city, and that will then solve the problem for the achievements in the morning, but also will protect children throughout the city. So I'm hopeful that we can get to that in the near future.
But we need this information ASAP. It's absolutely critical. And again, just to reemphasize a point that was made by Senator Felder a few minutes ago, last year there was nothing. Everyone should leave this room flying. Everyone should leave this room flying.
One last thing, very important. For those schools that rely on the regular mail to get your applications in, I suggest highly that you do it either certified return receipt or send it overnight so that there's no question about whether it was sent in time. And I failed to mention that we owe a great deal of debt to the governor's office. Please give them a round of applause when we certify this. Thank you very much for coming.
He sits out over there, sleeps every night in a hotel. He has no food to eat. I know exactly what he does. He doesn't want to listen. It's the owner, Simcha Felder. We have to, everybody has to give him applause. And thank you very much for his hard work and effort. And there's a person that she says that she's not cooking. I think that she's already become religious. I think she's already a Rebbetzin. The Celine Weinstein. And I can tell you one thing, anytime she wants to be reached, she's there to help us. She's there with all heart and merit. I should wish you have a lot of tzlach and simchas b'nachas.